Jason and Kim enjoyed a quiet evening in their secluded countryside home, situated at the edge of a dense forest. The evening was exceptionally calm, and their house was enveloped in the cozy, warm fireplace glow, softly illuminating the surroundings. Outside the windows, the sounds of evening nature filled the air, nocturnal insects buzzed incessantly, and in the distance, the wind rustled through the leaves. Jason was in the kitchen, preparing tea and filling the space with the aroma of freshly brewed beverages. Kim was settled on the couch in the living room, wrapped in a blanket and engrossed in a magazine. Their relaxation was abruptly interrupted by a sudden and loud noise coming from the attic. The sound was piercing and sharp, resembling the fall of heavy objects onto the floor, and was powerful enough to make them jump in surprise. At first, they couldn't understand what it could be, but soon fear and anxiety began to build. Feeling a wave of fear wash over her, Kim turned to Jason, and their eyes met with his gaze full of concern. Jason, realizing the need to investigate the situation, quickly composed himself and decided to check the source of the noise. He went to the counter where he had left a baseball bat, used during the last Saturday's game with friends. He also grabbed a powerful flashlight that was kept in a drawer under the TV and always handy for such occasions. Preparing for a potential threat, Jason turned on the flashlight and directed its bright beam into the dark space. He flipped the switch, and the light pierced the utter darkness, filling the kitchen with a cold, white light. Kim, trying to comfort herself, hugged a pillow and watched Jason's actions, feeling that she should have called the police, but it was already too late. Jason, resolutely heading for the stairs, disappeared into the dark corridor. Each step on the wooden stairs was accompanied by a creak, which seemed especially loud in the silence of the house. As he ascended to the attic, Jason felt his heart racing faster, and his hands began to sweat with excitement and anxiety. He knew that the attic was filled with old boxes and unwanted items that had accumulated over the years. The thought that someone might have gotten in there made him cautious. Each step was careful and deliberate, checking for any unusual movement in the darkness. Finally, Jason reached the attic door. He lifted the latch, and the door creaked open slightly. The flashlight's beam cut through the thick darkness, filling the attic space with a cold, white light. In its rays, he could see old boxes, dust-covered items, and shelves with forgotten things. The noise that had caused their alarm had ceased, and Jason began to carefully examine the area, trying to determine the source of the strange sound and what could have caused it. Jason meticulously and cautiously inspects the attic, carefully examining every corner with the help of a flashlight. The beam cuts through the thick darkness, illuminating antique boxes covered in layers of dust and rusty old tools scattered haphazardly across the floor. He methodically checks each box and item, moving them around to ensure there are no hidden threats. Despite his thorough efforts, nothing unusual is found. The only sign of recent disturbance is the slightly disarrayed old items, which might have caused the noise that broke the silence. The night adds a particular somber atmosphere to the situation. The moonlight streaming through a small roof window casts a cold, silvery hue over everything, accentuating the attic's seclusion and isolation. The sounds of the night outside, mixed with the creaking wooden floorboards, create a sense of profound unease and solitude. Every rustle seems louder and more menacing than usual, heightening the tension and making Jason particularly vigilant. After a detailed search that yields no significant findings, Jason decides to head back downstairs. He carefully descends the creaky stairs, feeling his tension start to ease. His face, illuminated by the dim light of the flashlight, looks focused and somewhat tired. But he begins to realize that the noise is likely caused by something minor, such as an accidentally fallen object. Upon returning to the living room, Jason sees Kim sitting on the sofa, looking visibly anxious and distressed. She clutches a pillow tightly, her eyes wide with fear, and every rustle or sound outside seems to terrify her. The night's silence, intensified by the absence of noise from the attic, only amplifies her unease. Noticing her state, Jason tries to comfort her. He explains that he didn't find anything suspicious in the attic and suggests that the noise might have been caused by a random falling object or possibly an old item that had become loose. Despite his reassurances, Kim still feels deeply unsettled. She turns towards the window, gazing at the night sky, and tries to manage her mounting anxiety, which is exacerbated by the late hour and the quiet night. Jason sits down next to her, making an effort to support her and help her calm down. He understands that, although the situation might seem insignificant, her fear and anxiety are very real. His presence and warmth may help her feel more secure. In the darkness of the night and the quiet room, they find solace in each other's company, despite the fear and anxiety that linger. Jason decides to stay by Kim's side, hoping that his support and care will make her feel safer in this tense situation. In the deep stillness of the night, when the house is shrouded in profound calm, Jason is suddenly awakened by a strange sound. At first, he can't determine what has disturbed him. It was a barely audible scraping or faint rustling coming from the hallway. He turns to Kim to ensure she is sleeping soundly, and sensing that something is wrong, he decides to investigate the source of the noise. After a few minutes of tense waiting, Jason cautiously gets out of bed and quietly approaches the window, trying not to wake Kim. He slowly draws back the curtain to peek outside. In the darkness of the night, with only the moonlight casting a faint glow over the surroundings, his gaze fixes on a strange figure standing motionless behind a tree in the garden. The figure appears suspicious, a person in dark clothing holding a knife. Partially hidden behind the tree trunk, the moonlight glimmers off the blade, creating a shimmering effect. Jason stands frozen in shock, trying to make out details, but the figure seems to notice his movement and steps back, disappearing further into the shadows. Jason feels his heart race faster. He realizes this is not just an ordinary passerby but a potential threat. Instantly, his fear turns into resolve. He decides to take action. Quietly, he returns to the bed to wake Kim. He tries to speak as softly as possible, explaining that they are in danger and they need to act quickly. Seeing the concern on Jason's face, Kim immediately becomes alert. Her eyes fill with fear, but she quickly grasps the seriousness of the situation. They both strive to act calmly and efficiently. Jason decides that their priority is to ensure their safety and contact the police. While Kim prepares for a potential evacuation, Jason discreetly grabs the phone and dials the emergency services to report a security breach and a potential threat at their home. Feeling an escalating sense of anxiety, Jason decides to check the backyard immediately. He quickly and carefully puts on a jacket to avoid making unnecessary noise and quietly opens the back door. The cold night air fills his lungs as he steps outside and begins to carefully survey the area. The backyard is shrouded in twilight, and Jason heads toward the spot where he had previously seen the dark figure. Moonlight barely illuminates parts of the garden, and he watches the surroundings closely. Trying to detect any signs of movement, his eyes gradually adjust to the darkness, and soon he realizes that the figure he had noticed earlier is now gone. During his inspection, Jason noticed that the garage doors, located in the far corner of the backyard, were wide open. The garage, which is usually always closed, is now ajar, heightening his sense of unease and alertness. Inside the garage, there is complete darkness, and Jason feels his anxiety intensify. The nighttime sounds seem louder and more threatening, every rustle heightening his fear. He cautiously and silently approaches the garage, trying to make no sound. Jason slowly peers inside, attempting to move without making any unnecessary motions. In the darkness, he sees nothing suspicious but listens intently to the surrounding noises, trying to determine if there are any signs of an intruder. In the absolute silence of the night, his breathing sounds loud and unnerving. Realizing that danger could be close and that the figure might return or be hiding nearby, Jason decides to act quickly. His sense of anxiety grows, and he understands that he needs to return to the house to check if Kim is safe. If necessary, he is prepared to continue searching without delay, despite the increasing fear and concern. Returning to the house after inspecting the backyard and garage, Jason feels a growing sense of dread. He rushes inside, hoping to find Kim, but as he enters, his heart freezes in horror. Kim is missing. In a panic, Jason starts rapidly moving through the corridors, checking every room, but Kim is nowhere to be found. Thoughts of her potentially falling victim to the person he saw in the backyard race through his mind. He checks the main areas, including the bedroom, but she is absent everywhere. Overwhelmed by fear, Jason decides to check the attic again, even though it seems an unlikely place for her to be. As he climbs the stairs, he notices that the attic window is open. This window is never left open, and the realization that it might have been used for an intrusion only heightens his anxiety. He cautiously approaches the window and peers outside, spotting the same figure he saw in the garden. The person, dressed in dark clothing, is hiding behind the bushes, leaving only part of their body visible. Jason's heart races as he realizes that the intruder is indeed nearby and that Kim may have been kidnapped or taken. Without wasting any time, Jason decides to take decisive action. He heads back downstairs to call the police, reporting Kim's disappearance and the potential threat. Simultaneously, he tries to remain cautious to avoid putting himself in further danger while waiting for help to arrive. Fear and uncertainty overwhelm him, but he understands the urgency of acting quickly to find Kim and protect her from possible harm. Jason, in utter confusion and deep despair, dials the police number with trembling hands. His voice quivers with anxiety and fear as he begins to explain the situation. He briefly reports that Kim is missing and mentions the suspicious person he saw in the garden hiding behind the bushes. Additionally, he notes that the attic window was open, which might indicate a possible break-in. Jason tries to remain composed, but his anxiety is evident in every word. The dispatcher on the other end remains calm and professional, asking clarifying questions. They inquired about the description of the suspect, the time Jason saw the suspicious person, and other crucial details that could aid the investigation. Listening carefully, the dispatcher gathers all necessary information to ensure a swift and effective start to the investigation. Jason, striving to be as precise as possible, details everything he knows. He describes any potential evidence in the house that might be useful for the investigation and lists all relevant details. His voice reflects not only fear but also deep concern. After ending the call, Jason, relying on his instincts and sense of urgency, begins checking doors and windows to ensure the house is securely locked and safe. He meticulously examines all locks and bolts, trying to confirm that no potential threats can get inside. Meanwhile, he prepares for possible interactions with the police and waits for their arrival. Soon, Jason hears the approaching sirens, and police cars begin to appear in his driveway. His heart races with relief that help has arrived, but his worry for Kim remains unchanged. He stays inside the house, nervously observing the actions of the arriving officers, hoping they can find clues to help bring Kim home and solve this mysterious case. The police initiated a thorough on-site investigation to gather all possible evidence and understand what happened. Officers organized their efforts for maximum efficiency by dividing responsibilities for examining different parts of the house. One group heads to the attic, where Jason had previously noticed the open window. The officers inspect the area around the window, closely examining any signs of entry. They found traces of dirt on the windowsill and small scratches on the frame, which might indicate that the window was used for access. Although the window itself was not damaged, these minor details could be crucial for understanding how the intruder entered the house. Other officers begin to search the main floor and basement. They check doors, windows, and locking mechanisms for signs of forced entry. In the garage, which Jason had left open, they find shoe prints on the floor and scratches on the inside of the door, suggesting that someone might have been in that space. These details are carefully documented and collected as potential evidence. The police focus also on smaller details, fingerprints on objects, damaged items, and any other signs that might indicate the intruder's actions. All potential evidence containing DNA or fingerprints is collected for further analysis at the forensic laboratory. Officers work in coordination, conducting the preliminary examination and interviewing Jason about what he saw and any evidence he might have discovered. They meticulously record all details to create a comprehensive picture of the incident and ensure the possibility of subsequent analysis. Additionally, the police use specialized equipment to search for possible traces that could aid in the investigation. They began to develop a search plan for Kim based on the collected evidence and available information about the suspect. The police also consider conducting additional checks and interviews in the area to gather more information about potential witnesses or suspects. Officers keep in contact with Jason, updating him on the progress of the investigation and providing necessary instructions. Despite his fear and concern, Jason tries to stay informed, hoping that the police will uncover all the details and find Kim as soon as possible. During a detailed examination of the house and surrounding area, one of the officers noticed several intriguing items left by the intruder that could prove significant to the investigation. An officer inspecting the attic draws attention to several objects near the window. Among them, he finds black gloves and small pieces of fabric. The gloves appear new and clean, suggesting they were recently used and possibly discarded when no longer needed. The fabric pieces seem to be part of clothing that may have been torn during a struggle or escape. The gloves and fabric pieces are carefully collected and packaged in envelopes for further analysis. The officers remove them for testing for DNA, fingerprints, or other traces that could aid in identifying the intruder. These items could prove crucial in the investigation, providing new leads to help establish the suspect's identity or link them to other crimes. The investigators plan to send the items to a forensic laboratory for detailed analysis. The lab will conduct DNA tests, fingerprint analysis, and examine any other substances that may be on the items. This could help determine the owner of the gloves and fabric and provide new clues about possible connections to other crimes. Officers also conduct additional checks to ensure that no other potential evidence is overlooked in the house and on the property. They thoroughly examine all rooms and surroundings, compiling a detailed report on the discovered items and adding them to the overall list of evidence for further investigation. Jason, watching the proceedings, remains hopeful that these discoveries will help solve the case and lead to Kim's whereabouts. He continues to stay in touch with the police, monitoring the situation and assisting in any possible search efforts. Jason understands that each new detail could play a crucial role in solving the case and bringing Kim home. During the investigation, the police delve into Jason's personal life and his relationship with Kim to uncover any potential connections or motives that might explain the incident. The investigators start by examining Jason's social media and public records. They scrutinize his online activity, including messages and posts, to gather information about his past, current status, and relationships. This data provides insights into his personal life, potential conflicts, or relevant relationships that could be pertinent to the investigation. The police also conduct interviews with Jason's friends and family. They inquire about the nature and duration of Jason and Kim's relationship, investigating any recent disputes or conflicts. The goal is to determine if there was any tension or issues between them that might have contributed to the incident. Jason's financial situation is also thoroughly examined. The police review his bank accounts, loans, and other financial records to assess whether financial problems could be a motive for the crime. These checks help to either rule out or confirm financial ties to the case. Additionally, investigators analyze Jason's close relationships, including colleagues and business partners. They explore whether anyone in his professional circle might have had a motive to attack Jason or his family. Potential conflicts or grievances are assessed to determine if they could be linked to the incident. Overall, the police aim to construct a comprehensive picture of Jason's life to identify any hidden motives or connections that might explain the occurrence. These efforts are focused on establishing potential links between the suspect and the victims, which can aid in solving the case and holding the responsible parties accountable. The investigation pays close attention to all aspects of Jason's life to ensure a thorough understanding of the situation and to identify any key elements that might play a role in the investigation. During the investigation, the police begin to uncover evidence suggesting a possible connection with a neighboring house. By analyzing the items found, such as gloves and pieces of fabric, and examining the area around Jason's home, investigators discovered traces leading to the adjacent property. Officers note that in the garden of the neighboring house, they find shoe prints matching those found in Jason's garage. These prints appear fresh and led toward a specific area adjacent to the house, raising suspicions. Additionally, fragments of clothing found near the neighboring house seem to match those discovered in the attic. All this points to the neighboring house potentially playing a significant role in the case. Investigators start by checking the neighboring house and its occupants. They begin by interviewing residents to determine if anyone has noticed anything suspicious recently. Among those interviewed, one resident exhibited unusual behavior and provided evasive answers, which raised additional suspicion. Officers decide to conduct a more detailed investigation focusing on this suspicious individual. They start by interrogating him, verifying his alibi, and collecting information about his background. His connections and financial situation are also examined to see if he might have a motive or the means to be involved in the crime. The police also searched the neighboring house, investigating all possible hiding spots and potential evidence that could confirm or refute their suspicions. They analyze the discovered evidence in the context of the overall investigation to find additional links and understand how the neighboring house might be connected to Kim's disappearance and the threats faced by Jason. Every new piece of information is meticulously checked, and the police continue to operate with heightened vigilance to ensure Jason's safety and solve the case. Jason remains in constant contact with law enforcement, providing any additional information and staying alert to his surroundings. Following the police's search of the suspect's home, which yields no substantial evidence directly linking him to the crime, Jason's anxiety grows. Just as he begins to doubt the investigation's progress, he receives a disturbing message on his phone. The message is poorly written, filled with errors, and threatens Jason and Kim with vague but ominous language. It warns them to stop their inquiries or face consequences, concluding with a chilling statement, "You'll regret meddling." Jason reads the message multiple times, each reading heightening his sense of dread. The threatening nature of the message intensifies his fear that the danger is real and immediate. He promptly contacts the police, providing them with the text and the sender's number. The police take the threat seriously and begin an investigation to trace the source of the message and determine its relevance to Kim's disappearance. The technical department of the police is tasked with tracking the sender's number and analyzing any related information. They employ their resources to determine the origin of the number and explore potential connections to suspects or other aspects of the case. Concurrently, police increase their security measures around Jason to ensure his safety and prevent any further threats. Despite his growing fear, Jason tries to stay informed and maintain communication with the authorities. He understands that the threat may indicate the case is more complex than initially thought and that both he and Kim are in real danger. Jason continues to follow the police's instructions and actively collaborates in the investigation, hoping their collective efforts will lead to finding Kim and resolving the situation. As the investigation continues, the police decided to review surveillance camera footage from the neighborhood around Jason's home. Hoping to find additional information about the suspicious individual seen earlier, forensic officers begin analyzing footage from cameras installed on nearby streets and areas. They start from the time Jason first noticed the figure in his garden. Using advanced technological equipment, they enhance the footage and carefully scrutinize every detail for any notable features. After a thorough review, investigators uncover a recording showing a figure matching Jason's description. The video depicts someone in dark clothing moving towards Jason's house and then hiding behind the bushes. This footage confirms that the intruder was indeed in the area and provides valuable insight into their actions and movements. The analysis reveals several important details. The suspect is seen moving with noticeable caution, which may suggest their intentions or familiarity with the area. The figure uses cover and heads towards the location where Jason had previously spotted them. These observations give investigators an idea of the suspect's methods and potential objectives. Officers continue to search for additional footage that might complement this information. They also check if the video captures any other people or vehicles that could be relevant to the case. These new leads offer further evidence that could assist in identifying the suspect and understanding their motives. The police update Jason on their findings and their plans for further investigation. While Jason feels some relief at the emergence of new evidence, his anxiety and concern persist. He remains hopeful that these new clues will help find Kim and advance the investigation. Throughout this process, Jason stays in close contact with law enforcement, providing any additional information that might aid in resolving the case and bringing Kim back home. As the official investigation continues, Jason's friends and family decide to actively participate in the search for Kim. They organize volunteer groups, eager to contribute to the case and uncover new evidence or leads that might aid in her recovery. The volunteer teams are divided into groups and begin a thorough search of the surrounding areas. Their focus is on wooded areas, abandoned buildings, and other locations that may have been overlooked by the official investigation. In addition to physical searches, the volunteers distribute flyers with Kim's photo and a call for help, aiming to attract public attention and broaden the pool of potential witnesses. During their searches, new evidence surfaces. One volunteer finds a fragment of clothing that appears to be part of what Kim was wearing on the day she disappeared. This fragment is discovered in dense brush near a local park. The volunteers promptly hand over the piece of clothing to the police for analysis, hoping it will help pinpoint her location or provide additional clues. Other volunteers come across signs that might indicate the suspect's activities. They find fresh shoe prints in a sandy area and tracks that lead to an unguarded site. These traces are carefully documented and submitted to the investigators for further examination, which could assist in locating the suspect's potential hideout. Soon after, another witness reports seeing a suspicious person who matches the description of the suspect near a local store. According to the witness, this individual was acting strangely and appeared agitated. This information is added to the ongoing investigation and used to seek additional evidence and refine the search for the suspect. The police actively work with all the new evidence and testimonies, meticulously checking each detail to find potential connections to the case. Jason and his family, supported by the volunteers, remain in constant contact with law enforcement, providing any information that could be useful in solving the case. These new findings and pieces of evidence rejuvenate the investigation and give Jason hope that his efforts and those of his loved ones will help find Kim and solve the crime. Every new piece of information is seen as a potential step towards resolving the case and reuniting with a loved one. Jason and his team continue to work diligently, staying optimistic and determined in their efforts. As the investigation progresses, the police finally identify the suspect and link him to previous crimes. After a thorough analysis of all the evidence collected, including surveillance footage and discovered items, investigators determined that the suspect was James Miller. Miller has a criminal history involving thefts and violent crimes, marking him as particularly dangerous. The investigators delve into Miller's criminal past and find that his modus operandi, (MO), matches the patterns observed in the current case. They discover similarities in his methods: the use of dark clothing to conceal his identity, break-ins with professional tools, and threats used to intimidate victims. These factors, combined with other evidence, establish a clear connection between Miller and the crimes under investigation. Further investigation reveals that Miller often targeted victims when they were alone, which allowed him to act with greater confidence and reduce the risk of capture. Detectives also find that he employed convoluted routes to cover his tracks, making his capture more challenging and increasing his danger to the community. It becomes apparent that Miller has a notable connection to the area where the latest evidence was found. This confirms the suspicion that he used this locality as a base for his criminal activities. Such findings suggest that Miller might be hiding nearby, which makes the search more focused and targeted. Now, the police understand that they are dealing with an individual who possesses significant criminal experience and is unafraid of taking risks. Miller's criminal sophistication and extreme caution require law enforcement to exercise exceptional care and precision in planning their next moves. Every step must be meticulously calculated to prevent Miller from evading capture or committing further crimes. With this new information, the investigation is poised to intensify as the police prepare to close in on Miller, aiming to bring him to justice and resolve the case of Kim's disappearance. The police decide to take decisive action and set a trap for Miller to determine Kim's location. Law enforcement officials meticulously plan the operation based on information about possible locations where the suspect might be hiding. The operation involves creating a decoy and manipulating information to lure Miller into a specific area. The first step involves orchestrating a false operation. The police fabricate a story about a stash of stolen goods being located in an abandoned building on the outskirts of town. To make this information seem credible, they prepare fake documents and even create false communications indicating the presence of valuable items at this location. The hope is that Miller, upon receiving this information, will be tempted to investigate the supposed stash. Simultaneously, the police establish detailed surveillance on suspected hideouts where Miller might be hiding. Observers are strategically placed at key points to monitor activity around the alleged stash location. These observers are trained to be alert and ready to act quickly if Miller shows up. A special police team is equipped with the latest tracking and communication technology and is prepared for the potential capture of Miller. They have developed a detailed action plan to execute the operation swiftly and efficiently, minimizing risks and ensuring the successful completion of the trap. Once all preparations are complete, the police launch the operation. The decoy activities are initiated, false leads are disseminated, and the observers take their positions. The police carefully monitor Miller's response to the spread of the fabricated information, ready to act if he appears at the designated location. Every step of the operation is meticulously coordinated to ensure maximum effectiveness and safety. As the trap is set, the police await Miller's reaction, hoping that he will take the bait and lead them to crucial evidence or even Kim herself. The success of the operation hinges on precise timing and coordination, aiming to resolve the case and bring Miller to justice. The police operation to trap James Miller proved to be a success. Through careful planning and swift execution, law enforcement was able to apprehend Miller as he attempted to exploit the false information about the supposed stash house. Miller fell into the trap set for him, allowing the police to locate his hideout. During the search of Miller's hideout, police made a crucial discovery: Kim, locked in one of the rooms. Although she appeared frightened, she was fortunately unharmed. Authorities promptly freed her and provided the necessary medical attention to ensure her well-being. Initially in shock, Kim was gradually calmed and supported after her health check. The reunion between Kim and Jason was deeply emotional, filled with tears of joy and profound relief. Jason embraced Kim tightly, overwhelmed with disbelief that she was finally safe. The intense emotions of fear and worry experienced during their separation were replaced by the overwhelming joy of their reunion. They held each other close, struggling to hold back tears, and shared their experiences and feelings about everything that had transpired. Jason expressed heartfelt gratitude to the police and everyone involved in the search efforts. He highlighted the crucial role played by friends and volunteers who contributed significantly to their reunion. His appreciation was genuine and profound, acknowledging that without their support, they might never have found each other. Jason also commended the professionalism of the police, praising their determination and bravery in ensuring Kim's safe rescue. He spoke about the importance of every detail that contributed to their successful resolution, from strategic planning to the execution of the operation. Kim, in turn, shared with Jason and the authorities the details of her captivity and how the decisive actions of the police led to her rescue. She described the relief and gratitude she felt, detailing how the well-coordinated efforts of the police played a critical role in her liberation. Kim recounted her efforts to remain calm despite her fear and the immense thankfulness she felt for those who saved her. Her account reflected sincere appreciation for the end of her ordeal and the return to freedom and safety. She elaborated on how the police's decisive actions and wise decisions were pivotal in her rescue and how reassuring it was to know that her safety had been a priority for everyone involved. After Kim's successful rescue and James Miller's arrest, the investigation continues as the authorities prepare for trial. Miller faces charges of kidnapping, threats, and other related crimes. The trial garners significant public and media attention, making it a high-profile and widely discussed event. During the trial, all evidence against Miller is presented, including testimonies from Jason and Kim, as well as collected evidence and witness statements. The prosecution's case highlights Miller's detailed planning and execution of his crimes, emphasizing his criminal history and the harm inflicted on Jason and Kim. Particular focus is given to the kidnapping details, the threats made, and the psychological pressure exerted on the victims. Miller acknowledges his guilt and cooperates with the authorities, which influences the court's decision. He is sentenced to a lengthy prison term, bringing a measure of relief to Jason and Kim, who find some sense of justice and closure. Despite this, they realize that their journey towards recovery and emotional healing has just begun. Following the trial, Jason and Kim embark on the path of healing and returning to normal life. They seek support from psychologists and support groups to deal with the psychological stress resulting from the events. Their relationship grows stronger as they find solace in each other, working together to rebuild a stable and secure life. They decide to continue living in their country house but take significant steps to enhance security and install additional surveillance systems to prevent future incidents. They are deeply grateful to everyone who supported them during their difficult times and strive to re-establish their lives. The new security measures and fortified precautions provide them with a renewed sense of safety and confidence in the future. The story concludes with Jason and Kim gradually recovering and discovering new sources of joy and stability. They come to understand that, despite the trials they faced, their bond and mutual support have been crucial in overcoming the difficulties and returning to a semblance of normalcy. They recognize that their true strength lies in their unwavering support for each other and their determination to move forward, no matter the challenges they have endured.